What does Michigan State football need to do to hit its ceiling in 2024? Also, who is the best Michigan State basketball team to never cut down the nets to end the year? Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That is $150 win or lose. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe. Comment below on YouTube throughout the show. We're going to have a lot of opinions being thrown around here as always. But what does Michigan State need to do to hit their ceiling this upcoming football season? Who is the best Michigan State basketball team to never win the national title? And then we're going to get into Michigan State basketball's national title odds for next year in the last segment. And, of course, I can't help myself. You can already see the shirt I'm wearing. I'm going to give some Masters picks at the end here if you want to fade that and make yourself a lot of money this weekend. All right, let's get into it. A few days, actually probably more than a week ago at this point, we opened up the mailbag, which is always open, by the way. I want to stress that, especially in the offseason. It's super open. So lockedonspartans@gmail.com or at Twitter, Sheehan_sports. Depressed Spartan wrote in 2 questions. What would a 3-and-D wing with length and a center with size and physicality do for this team next year? And then the second question, what are the 3 most important keys for the football team to hit its ceiling outside of great quarterback play, obviously? We're going to do a reverse here. We're going to hit that second question first right off the top. So thank you very much to Press Spartan for being the producer of this episode here in the first segment. So what are the 3 most important keys for this football team to hit its ceiling? I got 3 plus 1. That equals 4. Look at me flexing that Michigan State education right there. First and foremost, if you've listened to this podcast for anywhere from the last few weeks to the last few years, you know what I'm going to go with. You know where I'm going to go with for this first one. Trenches. Offensive line. The offensive line needs to have an adequate, if not just slightly above average season. We're not even setting the bar to outer space right now. We just want to see decent offensive line play here for many, many reasons. First and foremost, well, how about that quarterback you just talked about, Depressed Spartan? Aidan Chiles. Yes, in order for him to play great, well, he's got to have some guys in front of him that are blocking, that are actually giving him some time, that are actually keeping him on his feet. How about that for a change for Michigan State over the last few years? That would be nice. First and foremost, keep Aidan Chiles healthy because no disrespect to Tommy Schuster, the transfer quarterback coming in, or any of the true freshmen coming in, this season is donezo if Aidan Chiles gets rolled up on and he gets hurt for a long period of time. So first and foremost, we need that. Second off, the run game needs to thrive. And yes, of course, that can be bounced off the quarterback because oftentimes a good run game is what you need for the quarterback to thrive in a system, right? We remember how strong of a passing game Michigan State had back when Kenneth Walker was making his damage in 2021. MSU needs to make great strides in the run game. What was it last year? They averaged something like 2.4, 2.5 yards per carry, whatever it was. It was in the basement of the Big Ten. And you can see that bleed over to the passing game too. And no, that wasn't the only issue with the passing game. Basically, from who the offensive coordinator was to, well, just the execution of some of the players on the field. Like there was a whole list of issues with the pass game. But how do you aid that immediately off the jump is with the run game. How do you get the full potential of guys like Nathan Carter and also Jalen Berger as well? It's by putting the road graders up front and actually giving these guys holes. And Jonathan Smith's system, his scheme, is more slanted to the run game than it is the pass game. You can go back and look at his last few Oregon State teams. The run-pass split is more favored towards the run. And he talks about it as much in media availability as how he has to set the tone at the run game. So really, it's reminiscent of the pound green pound days. But you do need a run game to untap the full potential of guys like Aidan Chiles. And also, this is what we talked about last week of stats that need to improve next year and stats that we feel like will improve next year. You also need to up your time of possession. The last few years, Michigan State has been amongst the worst in the entire country at holding on to the ball. You need the offensive line to keep the quarterback healthy and to actually establish a run game. Things that we haven't seen here in East Lansing in quite some time. So let's keep it with the trenches for number 2 as far as keys go. The pass rush needs to improve. Last year, they were 8th in the Big Ten in sacks, which you might think, okay, like that's just slightly below average, but some context here, and these are stats that we rattled off last week, so apologies if this sounds familiar, but last year, Michigan State, 29 sacks. They got 10 of those in the first 2 games against Central, the Fighting Connor Stallions, and then they also got, I think it was 7, if not 8 sacks against Richmond. All right, the last 10 games of the season, just 19 sacks. And if you look specifically at the defensive end position, they only got 7 sacks from their defensive ends last year. 2 of them were from Brandon Wright. 1.5 were from Zion Young. So half of your sacks are gone this year. All right, so we need to replace that because in order to help the pass defense, which has struggled in the last few years, I'm sure you guys all know this, you got to get to the quarterback. We talked on yesterday's show that, hey, maybe Jalen Thompson could be that breath of fresh air as far as rushing the passer goes. So, again, we'll have to wait to the fall to see that. But as far as what we saw at the end of his true freshman season last year and how they're talking about Jalen Thompson, that could be one of the answers. But, yes, the pass rush has to get markedly better for Michigan State, as well as, number 3, linebacker pass coverage. Now, last year, Michigan State, they were bottom 3 in many Big Ten passing categories like yards per pass attempt, completion percentage. I don't have to illustrate how bad it was last year. As long as you have one functioning eyeball in your skull, you know how bad the pass defense was last year. And it's not all on the linebackers. Let's not get it twisted. We just talked about how the lack of pass rush didn't help the secondary. The scheme did no favors. But just by personnel, the linebacker pass coverage has to get better. They were picked on many a time last year. And I know that this is one of the things that are way easier said than done because every college fan base wants to see their linebackers better in pass coverage. It's hard to find those. Michigan State hopefully found one in Wayne Matthews, the Old Dominion transfer, who, of course, plays linebacker, graded on Pro Football Focus as one of the top pass coverage linebackers. Cal Halliday, he's shed anywhere between 15 to 20 pounds so far this offseason, and that's one of the guys where as good of a player he is at stopping the run, meeting guys in that A-gap, he does struggle and he is vulnerable in pass coverage, so maybe coming in as 15 to 20 pounds lighter helps him. I'm not going to say blindly that, that's going to fix everything and we can trust him to stick to tight ends like glue, but still, that's going to help moving forward here. The bonus one I want to give, I know we asked for 3 keys, but here's a 4th one. We got to identify a skill position player that could be a threat in the red zone. Now, it could very easily just be Jack Velling. All right, the tight end that led the nation in tight end pass touchdown catches last year. Okay, you could probably draw a pretty easy hypothesis and connect some easy dots to that. All right, same staff, same quarterback. But, man, you didn't see that last year in most games. Malik Carr made a cameo as that player every once in a while, but surely not enough, and it's probably why he's not here anymore. Now, across the board, Michigan State, they do lack the length, the size in their receiving core. Except Nick Marsh and Antonio Gates Jr., they are on that 6'3", 6'4"-ish cusp. Still, we're asking for a young guy in Antonio Gates Jr., who I believe only caught 5 passes last year. And then, well, of course, Nick Marsh, a guy that's caught 0 passes in the college level. I'm still high on both of those guys, but we have to see someone emerge as a red zone threat. Very well could be Jack Velling, or hey, maybe we even look at the guys behind him, the young guys like Brendan Parachek or Michael Masunis, but stay tuned there. If you know a key that we missed right here, again, comment below on YouTube, or if you're listening on podcast, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Now we're going to get to that first question just really quick here. What could a 3-and-D wing with length and a center with size and physicality do for this team next year? We've been saying this the last 3 weeks, or whenever the offseason started. I'm losing track of time here. But it just puts people on your team in better position. For example, if you get a wing player, not only are you getting someone that's experienced, that can actually play that position, but that means that Jaden Akins can slide and play that too at a full-time level, a position he's been waiting to play here ever since he's gotten to East Lansing. Cohen Carr can slide down and play the 4, a more natural position than I think than the coaching staff believes, quite frankly. But you don't have to solely rely on Garrick Norman, for example, a redshirt freshman, or, hey, pigeonhole Jaden Akins back at that 3 for more minutes than he wants. Also, if you get a center, not only is it just an upgrade just on baseline alone, but Booker can play the 4. That's what we see him more as. Really quick, Javon Hadley, he still has yet to make his decision. 24/7 crystal balls just actually flipped from Iowa State to undecided. So who knows if Michigan State has a heavy hand here or just quite simply more schools are getting in the mix. And then Frankie Fiddler, should everything go according to plan, he's the wing player from Omaha. Great player. He is visiting Michigan State on Thursday. So rumor has it he will be committing somewhere on Monday. So keep your eyes on that. All right, folks, we are going to be back to another mailbag question here. But first, I need to talk your ears off about Gametime, the best ticketing app out there. I love Gametime for so many reasons. I'm going to hit you with 2 right now. First, you know me. You know, we like saving money over here. So if you know you're going to go to a game, a concert, a comedy show later that week, hop onto Gametime, check out their flash deals. All right, they are second to none. Or if you're a procrastinator and you're just walking up to the venue with no tickets yet, well, lucky you. Gametime has the best last-minute ticket deals in the ticketing game. Hey, who else doesn't like fiddling with their phone and just knows nothing about technology like myself? All right, well, luckily Gametime, they make it super easy on you. It's just 2 taps to buy the ticket, and they are sent straight to your phone. It cannot get any easier with Gametime. That's why I love it. It is just idiot proof, which is what I need in life sometimes. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, we're going to swim into the mailbag yet again because David writes in, and we are going to be stealing some content ideas here from the one, the only Graham Couch. David writes in, hey, Matt, read Graham Couch's article the other day on ranking the best MSU teams to not win a title, and I'm curious how you'd rank those teams, or if there are any that you feel Graham left out. Personally, I think the 2015-16 MSU team would have cut down the nets if they had gotten a fair draw in the NCAA tournament. That team ended the season 13-1 in their last 14 games and came into the tournament hotter than maybe any of the other teams on that list. Thanks, and go green. So what I did here, I did 2 things. I clicked on Graham Couch's article. I read the beginning. I wanted to know his criteria for how he's ranking these teams. And the way he did it, it wasn't necessarily like how close they were, you know, just like being 2 games away, like, oh, they were in the Final Four, but they lost. He ranked these as how good were these teams at the peak, like whether it was in the middle of the season when they were playing their best basketball or at the end of the season, at their best form, who were the best teams to never win a title. The second thing I did, I stopped reading after there because I did not want my judgment clouded by how Graham ranked his. I did go back and read his full list afterwards, but this is where I netted out on the rankings here. 2013-14. All right, that team, the one that lost to UConn in the Elite Eight after taking a double-digit lead early into the second half, that to me is the number 1 team to never win. And I know that this isn't a conversation of, oh, which one is the one that got away, but I think it's both. I think this is the best team that never cut down the nets for Michigan State. I also think that this is the one that got away for Tom Izzo. But regardless, we can go to that conversation later on. The reason I think they're the best, guys, this lineup was absurd. Keith Appling, Gary Harris, Denzel Valentine, Brennan Dawson, Adrian Payne. That's your starting 5. 4 of those guys got drafted in the NBA, the National Basketball Association. And you just have guys like, Travis Trice coming off the bench, Matt Costello coming off the bench. I mean, this was a team that was sensational and also sensationally unlucky during the year. I was lucky enough to cover this team back in my senior year at Michigan State, which, oh my God, was a decade ago. Oh, Lordy. Okay, after that crisis, they had injuries all over the place. Keith Appling, about 29 different injuries. Travis Trice, 20,000 different injuries. Adrian Payne battling plantar fasciitis. Also, Brandon Dawson broke his hand halfway through. But at the end for the Big Ten tournament, when they actually had their whole team, they were cooking with gas. This team was incredible. We got Shabazz Napier at the end, but that's the best team in my opinion. That did not win the whole thing. Number 6, offensive efficiency, too. I wanted to add that stat. Also, Gary Harris hurt his groin that year. My God, that team was just could not catch a break. Number 2, I'm going to go with the 2008-2009 team. This was the team that lost in the national championship game against North Carolina at Ford Field. This team was just quite simply incredible. Not only did you have the Jarrell Summers, you also had the Kalen Lucas, you had Draymond Green, but this was also Goran Sutton and Travis Walton, and also Marquise Gray's senior years. This team was just incredible. They aced out a lot of teams in that tournament. They took care of Louisville, the top seed in the whole entire tournament, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, unless I'm getting my tournaments mixed up. But regardless, they still beat UConn in the Final Four. They just ran into a North Carolina team that probably could have competed in the Eastern Conference Finals that year. That team was just unfair to roll out on a college basketball court. Number 3, I'm going to go with the 2009-2010 team. This was a very similar team to the one that won the year prior. This was also Raymar Morgan's senior year. Jarrell Summers, Kalen Lucas, both juniors on that team. Draymond Green, Delvon Rowe, both sophomores. The only reason I have them ranked behind the year beforehand is just you missed a lot without Goran Sutton and also Travis Walton, the guy that stuck to people like wallpaper. He was an incredible defender. So while that team was more experienced in the year prior, I think Goran Sutton and Travis Walton just added that much that I would just give them a slight edge in that. Number 4, I'm going to dial back the clock here even earlier than the national championship year, the 1998 and 1999 team. Pretty much the same roster as the one that cut down the net the year after. This team was so loaded, actually, that Morris Peterson was coming off the bench for this team in 99. So, hey, they were the first team to go to a Final Four under Tom Izzo. This team still had an incredible year. So incredible that they only lost 2 games when the calendar flipped to 1999. They lost a game on January 6th, I believe, and then, of course, the Final Four game against Duke, I believe it was. So who is after that? We got 3 more. Graham Couch, I believe, did a top 10. We are just doing a top 7 here. Don't ask me why. That just seemed like a good list to make, top 7. For number 5 and number 6, actually, 2 teams near and dear to our hearts. Number 5 is the 2018-2019 team, the one whose road ended in Minneapolis against Texas Tech. Team just draped with dogs, right? I mean, Cassius Winston was cooking. Xavier Tillman was cooking. You also had Nick Ward. And again, the criteria for this is at their peak. So we're talking when Nick Ward was healthy. We all yearn for the days right now where you actually had a scoring option on that low block. So, Nick Ward, we miss you over here, man. You also had Kenny Goins, of course, who incredible defense, incredible rebounding. And, well, speaking of incredible defense, Matt McQuaid on that team too. I know that Matt McQuaid was lauded for his shooting, what he could do with the rock behind the perimeter, but man, what he brought as far as perimeter defense goes, I think goes a little unseen in hindsight. I think we were all well aware of it in the moment, but man, when we look back on those days of the team that could have, should have, maybe won it all, I do think of McQuaid's defense. And that is where we get into the murky waters of what is the team that let it get away for Izzo's second national title. A lot of people think it was the 2018-2019 team. If you ask me, this is maybe one of the more unpopular opinions I have amongst Michigan State fans. I think Virginia still beats Michigan State in the national title game, but we could yell about each other about that at another day. Number 6 is the year after the 2019-2020 team. Still Cassius Winston, still Xavier Tillman, who was a junior at that point, but you are replacing guys like Nick Ward, Kenny Goins, and Matt McQuaid. So this is maybe controversial because I think a lot of people have those two interchanged. The Cassius Winston senior year team a little better than his junior year team that did go to the Final Four. But man, just replacing that low block scorer in Nick Ward, a guy that's a strong rebounder like Kenny Goins, and then Matt McQuaid, again, perimeter defense. Although Aaron Henry did provide that in his sophomore year for that 2020 team. And Rocket Watts was cooking too at the end of that year. It is a razor-thin margin, but I'm going to go ahead and give the team that made the Final Four the nod over the 2020 team. Last but not least, coming in at number 7 as the team that did not win a title is the 2015-16 team. Now, you had, of course, Player of the Year Denzel Valentine. You had the sharpshooter in Bryn Forbes and Matt Costello. And that's not to say the supporting cast was just whack. They were trash. I just think outside of those three players, outside of Valentine, Forbes, and Costello, the cast around them wasn't as strong as you would see with any of the other six that we just named. So, yes, this was one of the best teams. Obviously ended in heartbreak. All right, we don't have to go ahead and just talk about those demons again, but that is why I have them at number 7. Guys, if I missed a team, and I know that there are some out there, like the 2017-18 team, the one with Jaron Jackson, Miles Bridges, they were a fantastic team too. Please comment below. Go ahead. Let's yell at each other. Or also, again, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. We're going to be back here in a quick second, actually, to talk a lot about FanDuel, but we're going to talk about what you can get out of FanDuel right now, America's #1 sportsbook. Yes, college basketball is over. It's a long time till college football, but it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. It just quite simply doesn't get any easier than that. Hey, if you're looking for the Masters coming up, go ahead. If you're a new customer, again, $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. It's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And speaking of FanDuel, hey, I know the college basketball season, it's going to tip off seemingly in 15 months. That's how long away it feels like. But that hasn't stopped the fine folks at FanDuel from uploading the odds for the national champion for next year. And Michigan State, your Spartans, sit at a smooth 55-1 odds. Now, for those that don't know about gambling, that means, hey, if you bet $1, Michigan State cuts down the nets. Not only will I'll be on the local news that night for losing my mind, but you will win $55. That is what that means. So in the grand scheme of things, not the greatest odds. Here are the favorites for next year. Let's just get that out of the way right now. Duke is your favorite at 11-1. Kansas 12-1. UConn 13-1. Alabama 15-1. North Carolina 15-1. And Houston 15-1. Those are the 6 teams that have better odds than 15-1. So there you have it. Michigan State really stack up in the Big Ten, though. And this is why I think it's important to talk about. It's not just, gambling. And if you're not into gambling, this still paints a pretty good picture of where the experts kind of project Michigan State amongst the Big Ten next year, because the highest odds, or the best odds for Big Ten schools, is Purdue at 30-1. That's pretty long odds for the best team in the conference. Big Ten, yikes. Illinois right behind them, 40-1. Now Michigan State has some company at 55-1. Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan, and UCLA all at 55-1. Maryland just behind them at 60-1, and then USC at 65-1. So what does that mean? It means Michigan State, in the eyes of Vegas right now, are tied for the 3rd best team in the Big Ten, with 4 different teams like we just named. So, but hey, why does it make sense right now maybe to put a shekel or two on Michigan State? Let's say that you're one of the people that every single year you bet on the Spartans. It doesn't matter how great they look ahead of the season or how many question marks are going into November. You bet on the Spartans every single year. This might be a really good time to get in on this wagon, and let me explain to you why. There's a lot of question marks still out there. There's a lot of mystery out there for Michigan State, but I don't foresee it getting any worse unless, let me find some wood and knock on, like guys like Xavier Booker enter the transfer portal out of nowhere, or Jeremy, like one-year star players unexpectedly entering the transfer portal. Okay, that would lower Michigan State's odds. But what can happen is maybe, guys like Frankie Fiddler, he commits to Michigan State. And I'm not saying that's going to skyrocket them all the way up to the 15-1 odds like Houston or anything like that. But adding a wing player like that, adding a center out of the portal, something that improves Michigan State's roster, that's going to bump Michigan State up a little bit, I would imagine. Again, it's not going to be a drastic shift, but hey, when it comes to buying low and selling high, this is a good buy low opportunity. And can Michigan State cut the nets down next year? I mean, that's maybe for a different discussion. I don't necessarily know if I can give out that advice and feel good about myself falling asleep at night, because I got a lot to do here as far as roster improvement. But hey, maybe if that happens, we could have that show. Talking ourselves into Michigan State cutting down the nets. Guys, they also have women's basketball national title odds for next year. And if you really want to make an investment Well, Michigan State is 500 to 1 next year in Robin Freilic's second year. South Carolina will come back as the overwhelming favorite for next season. So, yes, if you are really feeling yourself, you love the Lady Spartans on the basketball court, $1 will net you $500 should Robin Freilich climb that ladder next year to cut down the nets. All right, we're going to end this show with something that you probably don't even care about. But, hey, you know what? We're hijacking it, baby. It's Masters season. I love betting on the Masters. Of course, doing it at FanDuel. So I'm going to give you 3 Masters picks ahead of the weekend here. And look, first and foremost, is Scottie Scheffler probably going to win this thing by 4 or 5 strokes? Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. He's 4 to 1 on FanDuel for a reason, but that's so boring just to like give out as my winner. So I got one with some pretty decent odds, and then we got 2 that are middling odds. I don't want to call them launch shots. This isn't like I'm expecting Fred Couples to win this thing at $1 billion to 1, but still. The first name I got for you, Brooks Koepka. All right. The cliche with this being he only goes head hunting at major events. Yeah, there is some credence to that. All right. And let's go back here. The last 5 years at the Masters, he has 3 top 10 finishes, including a runner-up. The other 2 years, 2 missed cuts. So if we're looking for boom or bust here as a guy to keep up with Scottie Scheffler, it is our guy Brooks Koepka. And I understand last week at the Live event in Miami, he had one of the worst scores out there. He was +7 for the round. That does not bother me in the slightest. Even when he was still slinging it on the PGA Tour, this guy week in and week out would mail in the regular events. And then, oh my God, here he is. He's lifting the PGA Championship trophy decisively. Oh my goodness gracious. So yeah, the guy has 5 major championships. I know that this could be just very meatball head take and just I'm a moth flying to the light of Brooks Koepka. But amongst all the guys with high odds, like I just don't see Rory McIlroy ever producing at Augusta. I've lost many a dollar going down that route. I just really like the odds of 20 to 1 on Brooks Koepka. Also, the new putter really doesn't concern me that much. All right. So the next name I have for you, Wyndham Clark at 40 to 1. He's got a win so far this year, guys. He also has 2 runner-ups so far on the season. He is top 5 in the PGA Tour in strokes gained. All right, he bombs drives off the tee. Now, of course, I'm talking high up about this guy. Why is he 40 to 1 then? Why isn't he a favorite? Well, the one thing that you got to worry about is the driving accuracy. He is not too great at controlling the driver as far as he could bomb it down, and that's where you can get into a little bit of a pickle here. But on all other metrics, the strokes gain metrics, he is amongst the top in the PGA Tour. So at 40 to 1, a guy that has winning experience, not just this year, but also in majors last year, the fact that this is his Augusta debut does not throw me off as much. So, hey, for a 40 to 1 price, I think that's a good deal that you get at FanDuel. And right behind him, Cameron Young, 50 to 1 is the last name I'm going to give you here. Not too shabby of a player. 4 top 10 major finishes in the last 2 years. All right, he was 7th place last year in Augusta. Now, the one problem that you have with Cameron Young, because believe me, Lord knows that I've put a lot of financial liquid assets into Cameron Young, he doesn't win. He has never won on the PGA Tour. This is the guy that has yet to break through, and he just did it a few weeks ago again at the Valspar. Okay, he was tied going into the last 6 holes. Then the wheels fell off the bus for him. So maybe eventually all these close losses can equal lessons, and maybe he bites the floor or bites the fairway or bites the green, bites the tee box, whatever you want to call it, to finally get it done at Augusta. He has had, again, great showings in majors. I'll say it again, 4 top 10 major finishes in the last 2 cycles. All right, that includes a runner-up finish at St. Andrews. Sensational work. So can he just finally get it done, learn from his mistakes that he's had? And also, I just like to throw the stat out there too, top 30 in strokes gained. So it's going to be all about not wasting shots here, all about limiting the double bogeys and the triple bogeys on your scorecard. Although John Rahm, what did he do last year? It was quadruple bogey on the first hole, and he still won with these. But still, guys with like 40 to 51 odds, you need to limit the damage. And, well, Cameron Young, Wyndham Clark, let's hope that you can do that. But, hey, so it's Brooks Koepka, Wyndham Clark, and then, of course, Cameron Young. All right, gang. Hey, if you're feeling hot about a golfer, again, comment below on YouTube. Or Hey, just simply enjoy this weekend. We will be back tomorrow. Also, on the weekend show, we're going to talk about our 20 things we are looking forward to the most for this Michigan State football season because, well, this weekend is going to be 20 weeks until kickoff. So if you have something you're looking forward to, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Love you all. Go Green.